Thinking about buying a game? Then buy a game that makes you think. This catchy little phrase was printed on the side of Settlers 2, a real-time strategy game from the mid-90s. Released in a golden era for the genre, this game really stood out, and is considered by many, including myself, to be the best in the series. Welcome then to YesterYear's Mac Games, where today we've stepped back to 1997 to look at Settlers 2. I say 97 as the port came a year after the initial MS-DOS release. A PC-only gold version came a year after that, with extra features. This is the version you can still buy today on GOG.com. For the best experience on modern hardware, I would recommend downloading the free source rewrite. It's called Return to the Roots, and as you can see here, runs so much smoother than the original. It still needs the data file from the game, so this solution isn't completely free, but with more maps, more gameplay variables, additional content and modern resolution support, it's worth it. That said, I don't recommend playing in full HD, for the following reason. There's heaps of stuff on the screen, all making a complete and utter racket. Settlers 2 was, perhaps unsurprisingly, the second in a long series, although none of the sequels quite got everything right to the extent that the second one did. 10 years after release, it got a 10th anniversary edition made. This is essentially the same game but in a 3D engine. It's quite good, although some of the charm, from the look and feel, was lost in translation. A year after that, it got a rather bad port to the Nintendo DS. Anyway, back to the original. Macintosh specs sound modest enough, requiring a Motorola 68030 and 12 megs of RAM. I tried it on a slightly faster 68K system, clocked at 33 MHz, to find it ran like an asthmatic sloth. This looks to be playing at about 4 FPS. So pay no attention to the official specs. This needs a Power Mac. The old Mac version will run on any PPC Mac, running systems 7 through 9. For whatever reason, it does have a tendency to crash newer machines frequently, but increasing the memory allocation tends to alleviate this somewhat. Gameplay then. Settlers 2 sees you building up a series of buildings in order to collect resources, needed to set up more buildings, that will process the resources into things that benefit the construction of more buildings. This is a production management and logistics game at heart. So here's a brief rundown of a typical cycle. To build buildings, you need stone and wooden boards. So, objective number 1 is to secure a source of both. You can only build within your territory, which is extended by placing military buildings on the edge of it. So, plop a few of those around the place and start expanding. Each worker with a proper job, i.e. anyone other than these layabouts, needs a tool. So to ensure you have enough tools, you need some miners to dig up various ores. This is then hauled to either iron smelters or mints. Smelted iron goes to armories or metalworks, depending on whether it's becoming a work tool or military equipment. One slight complication to this, however, is that the miners need food. Oddly enough, they are the only ones in this game that actually need feeding. Food production, for this small percentage of your population, is quite elaborate. Fishers will fish and hunters will hunt, but both of these are a stopgap solution, as they run out of things to catch and track after a while. In the gold version and Return to the Roots, a bunch of trees will spawn more animals, but this is bugged in the Mac version and doesn't work. For a limitless supply of food then, set up farms to grow some grain. These farms need a lot of space to achieve a decent yield, and should on no accounts be anywhere near a forester, who will plant trees where the crops are supposed to go. The grain can either be milled into flour for bread, or be fed to pigs for meat. The third use for it is delicious beer, which is needed alongside a sword and a shield to make a new military recruit. Actually, let's just take a moment to dwell on that thought. Beer is drunk by the military, and no one else. You can feel confident then that when hostilities do break out, that your troops will be suitably plastered to have the courage to charge forth. Minting the gold that you've mined into novelty-sized coins is also important, as these are used to train and promote your troops. The most important part of gameplay is also the most understated element. Settlers 2 has a very unique transportation system, as each building needs to be connected with a road. The little guys won't run willy-nilly around the map. They're far too stubborn and demand a designated walking route. You can tell this game is German. A porter will stand between the flags on either side of a road, picking up whatever shows up on one side and dropping it down onto the other. When this works, it's pretty neat. It's not an uncommon situation, however, to uncover complete and utter gridlock, with everyone standing around waiting for space at a flag to put down whatever they're carrying. Adhering to a few good practices can minimise the possibility of this. First off, a porter can be joined by a donkey, who helps carry stuff. Second, for every major route from your headquarters, it can benefit from having 2 roads set up perpendicular. Ideally, once you expand further out, you will want to set up a storehouse, and give it its own supply of wood and stone, so that it doesn't need to be hauled all the way from the HQ. This is critical if you're on a big map, and trying to get something built before an opposing player. Mechanically, every player is the same. However, there are a total of 4 different sprite sets. These being Roman, Viking, Japanese and African. The buildings, flags, military units and for some reason scouts all look different. Opponents will operate in largely the same way that you do. They build up their infrastructure and will orchestrate attacks when they have the means. Military action is unique in this game. Soldiers that are stationed in military buildings next to the border can stomp over to an opponent's military building, square up a fight, and take turns hitting each other with swords. Defeated troops then spontaneously combust. A nice touch of realism there. The more elaborate military buildings allow you to house more troops, meaning bigger attacks and better chances of success. They also allow more troops to be trained at one time. A coin in a building with a single soldier will only elevate him a single rank. But get a few more in there, and it will train multiple troops at the same time, so long as they are different levels. It's good practice then to go into the military menu at the start of a game and set the deployment levels to full, so that gold minted early on isn't training a single unit. AI is hit and miss. Later levels of the campaign are the only real challenge in this game. And that's only due to the placement of gold and other terrain benefits given to the computer players. AIs aren't really able to maximise raw materials, placing numerous duplicate buildings in the same area. You only need 1 mine to dig stuff out of a 2-square radius, so unless you're super impatient, putting 2 next to each other is poor practice. Overall, I do think that gameplay is pretty well rounded. I would label it at least 80% building and planning. Military stuff is usually over pretty quick. There are a few other elements that occasionally come into play, like exploration, geology, and expeditions with ships, but building stuff and managing resources is at the heart of everything. Later games didn't really capture this in the same way, particularly as the road system was scrapped. The gameplay is one of the core reasons why Settlers 2 has aged pretty well. The graphics are another. These are pixels, but they're pretty detailed. The sound effects are varied, everything has its own noise, and the soundtrack, playing in the background, is CD-based, making pleasant enough listening, although it's off by default, and to be honest, I never turn it on. I fire this game up quite frequently, usually to mess around in the unlimited play mode, where a player can take on up to 6 other AIs. The stock maps that came with the Mac version are okay, although having played them quite a lot over the years, imbalances between the starting positions are only too apparent. If you start in a location without any gold, you're in trouble. And if you start too close to another player, you're also at a big disadvantage, as you start squabbling over territory while everyone else is perfecting their infrastructure. Settlers 2 Gold for the PC bandaged this issue with its additional maps and level editor. I decided to see if these level files would work on the Mac version, so I copied them over to my PowerBook, duplicated a Mac file, and used YesterYear to dump the new map data into the duplicate files. And it worked! This is the Pancake, a Settlers 2 Gold map running on the Mac version. I was rather pleased with this. All in all, Settlers 2 is just as good now as it was on release, and deserves more recognition than it gets. The series of games isn't dead, although there hasn't been an installment in some time. Developer Blue Byte, now a Ubisoft studio, are still live and kicking, putting their expertise from the many years of real-time strategy development into the Anno series, The version of Settlers 2 for classic macOS has all been forgotten. You'll be hard-pressed to find a copy on eBay, and references to it are few and far between. A download, however, is present on the Macintosh Garden, should anyone with original hardware wish to try it out. I've also uploaded the maps I converted. So that's it then for this edition of YesterYear's Mac Games. Share your thoughts in the comments or on the Twitter. You can find me at YYsMG. For more Macintoshery, do check out some of my other videos. I upload new ones periodically, so subscribe to keep on top of them. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.